In today's show, we have another of our popular Dynamite Conspiracy episodes. And today we discuss, what is the Eye of the Sahara? Is it indeed the lost city of Atlantis? And also we discuss, did giants roam the earth in the past?
And now, the TNT Talk Show, daring to go where other podcasts fear to tread.
Hello, I'm Tony Fasulo and I share the stage with my esteemed friend and colleague Tayo Boya. Tayo, hello my friend, I hope you're keeping safe and well.
Yeah, Tony. What the hell, eh? What are you going to do?
I'm the liquid energy, you're the drain. And it just pours out and into the drain and out again.
Well, I didn't ask for your energy. You can keep it, pal, you know? Part of the things I have to go through is knowing that every week you're going to come and say, oh, God, there we go again. Anyway,
Come
do you
on.
happen to know?
Oh no, I didn't even ask you to say hi to our audience.
I
Were you going to
realized
jump
that
in?
when I started because I'm so... Okay, go on.
Go on then.
Hello, audience.
Hey! That's his positivity shining through.
Let me ask you this. Why do men... Have I asked you before, why do men tend to die before their wives?
Yes, you have.
I have asked you.
Because
okay,
they choose to.
So I'll ask you something. Yeah. Give me one to pal. I'll ask you something else then. Okay. Oh, this is something I was thinking about because of this very episode. You know, it's about giants and Sasquatch and Bigfoot and all that. And it suddenly occurred to me, that all those blurry pictures of Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Did you ever cross your mind that it's not that the pictures are blurry, it's that Bigfoot is a blurry monster itself?
Yeah. So it's just a big blur, and that's
This
so the pictures are sharp.
This is a big blurry monster, man. That's how we never get it. And to me, boom! I've solved the issue of Bigfoot. It's a blurry monster. Yeah.
It must say the same for UFOs and things like that. They're always blurry too.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So maybe there's a blurry world out there. We haven't figured it out yet. And one day we go, it's a blurry world.
I see.
And I wonder if we're blurs to them.
Well, yeah, possibly, if that holds true, yes. Anyway, let's move on. You've given some of the show away to our listeners. We are fortunate today. We've got another one of our popular Dynamite TNT episodes. And time permitting, of course, we'll try and cover as many weird topics as we can. But we'll start off with the first one, which is the Eye of the Sahara. Now, what is it? Tayo, I'll ask you to kick off. What's the Eye of the Sahara? Can you explain to our audience?
The Eye of the Sahara is an interesting geological feature in the Western Sahara. I believe it's in sort of like the western part of Mali, if I'm right in my head. I'm looking at it in my mind's eye.
Somewhere along that line.
Somewhere along there. It might be the Gambia. I don't think so. I think it's in Mali, but
Mauritania, I'm hearing.
So Mauritania even, which is even for more westerly. Right. So it does look, in some respects, if you've got an active imagination, it looks like an eye with the iris and the pupil and all that sort of thing. So it's circular structure or series of structures. It's a series of actually two concentric rings, and a dense, discolored, if you like, central circular area.
It's quite big, isn't it?
It's well, you can see from space, and this is how we see the pictures taken from space. So it's quite large, and again, if you've got an active imagination and knowledge of Egyptian lore, as in lore, there is a way of drawing this eye and its surrounding geological features. There's a way of drawing it that is remarkably like the eye of Horus, as represented by the Egyptians. Horus, of course, being a god. I think it was the god of wisdom, but I might be wrong.
I can't remember.
Yeah, it was one of the gods. And the Eye of Horus. And so this is why this is what makes it so evocative and suggestive of being an eye, and that is the eye in the
Eye of
Western
the
Sahara.
Sahara. I mean, we're talking about the size of the thing. The diameter 30 miles wide.
Yeah.
So it's not insignificant, and it's concentric. So if our listeners and viewers are watching or hearing us now, obviously when you get the opportunity, go onto your favorite internet search engine and do a search for the Eye of the Sahara, and you'll see some pretty good pictures that were taken from space and obviously subsequently now back on Earth. This thing is massive. I mean, 30 miles wide. You wouldn't notice it if you were down on the ground. And it was only when we ventured into the atmosphere and into space were we able to see it from above. And it's a as you've rightly said, Tayo, it's got discoloring. It's got a blue bit, hasn't it?
Sorry, I just wanted to. I love the way that you interject. I prefer I interrupt. Sorry for interrupting you. I just wanted to say to our viewers and listeners, you might wonder why we say go onto your favorite, go onto the internet and use your favorite search engine, whereas everybody else on the planet actually provides links for you. And the reason is because A, I'm lazy, and B, I think that way what happens is you can actually be sent down into a silo.
Yeah.
Because it's all done for you and you can be led down the garden path. This way we give you the search terms and you go out there and you find what you find.
Yeah.
That's the excuse. I mean, that's the reason.
Indeed. So yeah, we're not being specific on any particular search engine.
No.
But you
any
can
link.
Yeah, exactly. You can find this yourself.
And challenge us if you find that we're talking better, then challenge us.
Absolutely.
Sorry for the interruption. There we go.
No, not at all. There is also the official name for it, for the Eye of the Sahara. It's the Richat structure. R-I-C-H-A-T. Richat.
I need to go there. I had it down as
R-I-C-H-A-T. So it's spelled Richat almost, but I don't know if that's actually how it's pronounced. But Richat, I don't know. That's the proper term. And geologists originally thought it was some sort of impact crater. Because if you do look at the pictures of it, it does look like something has crashed into the ground. But what they did do, they examined the rock, and the formation of it is up for grabs, but they said it's possibly 540 million years old. Obviously, they don't know 100%, but all the bits inside of it are all worldly. There's nothing to indicate a crater hit there. A meteor of some sort came external from the planet and collided with that space.
And to the fact of coming at a rather sort of neat angle. I mean, really spot on. Well, because it's not angular. There's no stretching. Normally meteorites and things from outer space, they hit at an angle.
But if you notice, however, there is an explanation about this, because if you look at the moon, when you look at the impact craters on the moon, they're all circular. The reason for that, even though the meteors are coming at a different angle, and more often than not, they are coming at an angle. It's never head on, as you've just described. It's the impact is caused by the after effects of the impact. So it's all the earth and whatever it was, the soil being blown in the air and then landing again in a symmetrical shape. So it's the atmosphere pulling the dirt back down into this circular shape. And it's been proven with tests. I was like you, I was a bit, how's it at an angle? It couldn't have been. But when you see an impact crater, it's not the actual impact itself that causes the crater symbol. The impact causes an indentation, but it's all the earth that's been pushed out by the impact that gets pulled back down in a symmetrical sort of design. And they've shown it in a lab experiment. So anyway, that's a digression. But
no, we're talking about the origins of the thing. It's not
but they would be remnants of a asteroid or a meteor hitting
somewhere in there somewhere. You see fragments
possibly, but they couldn't find any, which was interesting. So There was also something that's also interesting was that Plato, remember Plato,
Do I
the
remember Plato?
philosopher?
I know I'm old, but I never had the pleasure actually. Tony.
Plato being such a esteemed person in history, he
Mhm.
actually described it as the remains of the lost city of Atlantis. Because he didn't
Yeah.
say that specific area was the lost city of Atlantis, but the rings the of this Eye of Sahara resemble some of the drawings that Plato described what the city of Atlantis looked like, which was concentric circles with water in between, with land around it, and it sort of went in, and you had a pathway in. And when you look at the Eye of the Sahara, it sort of resembles this. So some people are making the link. So
Specifically, he said it was an island within two outer concentric circles. So basically, there were three lots of water. And if you look at the Eye of the Sahara, the ritual. By the way, I quickly looked it up. It is Rechat, but it comes from the Arabic, and there's a circumflex over the A. That's why it's like I was saying, because I've heard it rather than seen it. So it's Richard. It's like
Richard, right? Okay,
yeah, that kind of thing.
not the way we pronounce it.
Right,
Okay.
yeah. So he was describing this rather sort of fabulous kind of place. The way we think about Xanadu today, when we go, ooh, Xanadu, this fabulous area about this island surrounded by concentric outer areas. A little bit, it actually makes me think a little bit about Dubai and those
the palm tree, how
the
they
palm trees and
it.
things. It's like this is Earth engineering on a massive scale, and yeah. So that's. I just wanted to say that's what it was all about. So carry on, please, Tony.
No, but I mean the fact that a scholar like Plato or Plato,
Yeah, what
how
am I
pronounced?
doing? What the hell is
Plato.
Plato?
I've started.
Are you hungry or
posh.
something? Okay.
He obviously all his works were raised in high regard because of the quality of his studies. So why then is this the only thing out of his many items that he put out which were found to be true? Is this being questioned? Because people are questioning the fact that could this have even been Atlantis? Did Atlantis even exist? But he described it as the lost city of Atlantis in these rings. And so could this genuinely have been what he described it as? We don't know. We don't know.
Well, the thing is this. The thing is it's a bit peculiar when you say that we're poo-pooing this. Generally, especially in science, you make a prediction and then people find the thing that you predicted. That's more or less a slam dunk. And it's kind of weird that you would have described a very particular kind of structure, and then we find such a structure, and our instinct is to go, yeah, Bruce sucks to that. We don't believe it. I think the problem is that the idea of Atlantis itself is fantabulous.
Yeah.
It's already like this ancient civilization. But when you think about it, it's really what people report about Atlantis that is fantabulous. Yeah. If we just said it was an ancient civilization, end of story, we would have been happy. I mean, not we. I mean, the skeptics probably have been quite happy to come across something that could have been Atlantis. But it's when you say Atlantis was an advanced civilization, more advanced than us, even, with flying machines and everything, and there's absolutely no other evidence for that. That's where the issues start sort of cropping up. That and people start putting their back up and saying they don't believe it. So this is what I think. I myself believe that there probably was this ancient city. I mean, it's mentioned in various places, isn't it, by various people, not just Plato.
It is.
Why wouldn't there be this place? And
You're right. You're right. Why couldn't there be? I'm absolutely spot on. I think you're right there. I think people have the problem with the possibility that they are more advanced than us,
Yeah.
and we can't seem to accept that because it
Well,
throws a
where's
lot
the
of
evidence?
things.
Oh, where's the evidence?
Well, there's no evidence, but if that was to be accepted, it puts us in a difficult position because you've had an intelligent civilization in the past of which we're progressing, we've gone backwards. We went backwards for a time, and then now we've caught up, and now we're intelligent again. And it's almost like why you'd normally have, prehistoric and that image in your head of a civilization being, pretty dumb in the past, and we're the superior ones now that we've become knowledgeable. But this, although I will caveat that, depending on some of the people you meet online, I strongly disagree with that claim that we have become more intelligent as a whole. I think that could be backwards. But that aside, we don't like the idea of there possibly being a civilization that could have potentially been more advanced than us. But saying that, there is no evidence. There's only things that people have spoken about in books. There's no evidence, there's no hardware, there's no bone structure, there's no buildings, there's nothing at all as far as we are aware that has been discovered or unearthed which will corroborate this theory of Atlantis.
I need to interrupt. I've got an emergency here.
Oh,
my daughter can't get into the house. So.
do you want to pause the recording?
Pause, and then we'll have to go back in. Sorry about that.
Okay, no worries. Okay, following on from what we were saying, there's something else that we may have not touched on that Plato, sorry, I'll say it again. I don't know why I'm saying that now. Plato reported that there were elephants and many other animals were abundant in Atlantis. So this is his recall. And they found elephant bones near the eye of the Sahara. So that seems to, again, link. And he also described black, red, and lighter coloured rocks in and embedded throughout the land of Atlantis.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, and that's also true of the Eye of the Sahara. True. And the other final one was the artifacts that they found. They did find artifacts in and around that area, of which they believe were 12,000 years old. And this then puts them in that time frame of when the civilization of Atlantis was around. Now, I think if people believe the Atlantis as a race of people or a civilization, we don't know how big it was. We don't know whether it's a whole continent or was it just a small community of, a few thousand people. Because we, through folklore and the way that the media have portrayed it, seems to imply it's a whole continent of advanced beings almost. But it may be much, much smaller than that. It could have been just the size of a city. And
30 miles across.
That's quite big, but it's not a continent, though.
And it would allow for millions of inhabitants.
It would, but even back then, I mean, the population of the planet was never great.
We could say it was millions of, I'm saying it could allow for.
It could allow, indeed. It did, especially if there was prosperity.
Millions of people. And because of the trade that Plato and an earlier chap, I can't remember his name,
Socrates.
This chap no. It's not even Greek or anything. It was like really early. And unfortunately, I've been trying to access.
What do you mean? He was a philosopher as well, or scientist in those days?
He drew a map.
Drew a map?
I love the way he put that. He drew a map. And his map was of the known. It was of the known world at the time, which included what would have been Rome, parts of Europe, parts of near Asia, which is now today called the Middle East, and North Africa.
What, Pangaea? Wasn't that
Mm,
the whole world before it split up?
no, this is the known world because that's how far they traveled. The
Right.
inhabitants of that time that this map was drawn. That's how far they'd explored, if you like.
Okay.
And in what to us is today the southwest corner of the map was somewhere that was marked Atlantia, or Atlantia, which of course is, translates to Atlantis. I think it was a Roman. So was he
Hmm.
after the Romans were after the Greeks, weren't they? So it would have been after Plato.
Hmm.
Um,
But this is then asked the question: when was Atlantis even around? Was
Everyone
it did
seems to
it
think it was about
predate
11,
the
12,000 years
Greeks?
ago, 11 to 12,000 years ago,
So it was
which is
way
very
before the
interesting.
Greeks and the Romans.
Yeah, way before. It's
Hmm.
very interesting because anyone who follows our podcast will remember when we spoke about the CIA and its really
Yes.
weird book that was, um, what's that, redacted.
Hmm.
And this weird book, it's weird because it seems to be a very ordinary book about prehistorical civilizations and catastrophes and things. And you think, what's that got to do with the CIA? Why are they
Yeah,
redacting? You know,
exactly.
it's like why? You know, what possibly could have been revealed in this book that would alarm the CIA? And that book spoke about there being what is it? Pole shifts, catastrophic pole shifts every so often, every 12,000 years or so.
Yeah.
Was the mathematics? This guy 11 to 12,000 years, and isn't it just remarkable? Just coincidentally,
Hmm.
that's the sort of time frame at which we're looking at something catastrophic happening to Atlantis. And the other thing so that's interesting is like, oh, that's a coincidence that a civilization disappeared 12,000 years ago, which is when
Hmm.
we actually kind of think that the last pole shift was, took place.
Isn't it
And
happening now, by the way?
it is, well, this is possibly what alarmed the CIA.
Hmm.
You want to cause a panic because this book we're talking about was was published, I believe, in 1963, if I remember correctly.
Around there, yeah, middle of the 60s, middle, early part 60s,
And you
yes.
have to remember, we didn't have the internet then, and the kind of access to information that we have now. So if you wanted to hide it, you could. It's much more difficult to hide to hide information now with the internet because everybody seems to know everything.
Well,
No, or
that's
not.
up for debate.
um,
All this
and
information and
anyway,
no
it's
less.
still a
Yeah,
bit. I've actually, since we've done that, since
sure.
we did that show, I've read some articles debunking the idea that the CIA had anything to worry about. On the other hand, I always ask the debunkers, well, in that case, what was redacted? And I haven't
Yes.
received an answer.
Well, the thing is, the the book itself,
Hmm,
it's still classified. The
I know.
book, the book had 200 odd pages.
Hmm.
Only 88 have been released, of which they're still highly redacted. And it was talking about some of the things we're discussing today.
Yeah.
So if there's nothing to worry about,
Release the
why?
book.
Yeah,
Just
release the
publish the
book.
book
What's in
as
it?
is. What's the problem?
Exactly.
But all the
Why the
debunkers,
CIA? Yeah.
although the debunkers do have some good arguments, I'm not going to just sort of poo-poo them. They do have some good arguments, but it still boils down to, well, then what's the problem?
Hmm.
Anyway, so since then, since we spoke about it, I've come across, and because of this show, today's show, I've come across something rather interesting. And it will require people to, again, go online and use their favorite search engine to look for Sahara catastrophic flood or Sahara catastrophic tsunami
Hmm.
and look for the search terms. And there is now, we see now that there are actually quite a lot of geological features that I don't want to say confirm, but strongly suggest that there was a catastrophic flood or tsunami, some kind of wave, hundreds of feet high,
Hmm.
that came down from around the Middle East. From about the what is the the eastern seaboard
Yep.
of Egypt across the Sahara, sweeping everything in its path all the way down across the Sahara and over Atlantis, and washing basically Atlantis into the sea. And
But
one
does
of
that
the
not
most
work out? Because surely, if Atlantis was thrown into the sea and the wave came from the west
yes,
across,
came from the east.
came from the east.
Yeah,
So
Sahara,
it came from
Egypt.
so
Egypt.
okay,
Egypt
so
on
it came
look
from
at
the
map.
east.
Yeah, yeah.
And where did we say the eye of the Sahara was?
Southwest.
Southwest.
So it actually swept across the whole of the Sahara. And you got the
That's got
sand
to be a
dunes.
pretty big wave or
300 to
flood.
400 feet, they reckon.
How many?
300 to 400 feet high.
That still wouldn't be enough. They were saying,
well, 300 to 400 feet high when it got to Atlantis.
Oh, I see. When it got all the way across, it was
got
still
all
that
the way
high.
across. It got all the way across. And there's a volcano. There's a caldera. It's this extinct volcano. And looking at it, one of the most powerful suggestions for this, looking at it, you can see like the caldera is got a smudge, like it had formed, and there had been lava flows, and then something came along and smudged it, and like you would, with a hand when you smudge something, and it smudges in the direction that we're talking about.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that's very exciting about that, and it's all part of the things that you can you're free to look up. Also, do you know that there are mollusks and other sea creatures, the bodies of these are found all across the Sahara?
Wow.
Yeah. Also, they got sea creatures in the middle of all these places. Yes, we know the Sahara once upon was green and fertile, but nobody else suggested that it got sea creatures. We expected like riverine creatures, much like we have now in the what?
The what?
Okovondo. I'm from Africa. I don't know the That's how, like in Kenya, places like that, there's something valley, the Okovondo or Okondo.
Okay.
Valley. So hippos and things, this is riverine areas.
Yeah.
You don't expect sea creatures there. I mean, there's water, but it's a different kind of water. It's not salt water, right? So if you find saltwater sea creatures in the middle of the fossils, not really fossils, the remains of these creatures, how do they get there? So
unless it was a big flood of some sort,
correct.
or tsunami.
Right. And if someone reminds me, I will actually come up with the report which has led to this, because it's a quite recent report. I think it was 2018, 2019.
Oh, okay.
So that's why it's pretty recent, and that's why there's been this renewed interest. So the theory is that the one last piece of evidence is that off the coast of Mauritania, there is what's it called now? Landslide or sea slide. There's a slide in the shelf there, in the continental shelf, showing that something pushed a whole Americanism, a whole load of soil and earth into the ocean, and creating this kind of like a slide, like a gradient, like a slide into the ocean. And they reckon that up to about 2 kilometers deep, we'll be able to find the actual artifacts of Atlantis that we're looking for. That's where it is.
Would have ended up.
And so somebody is saying, can they please put together some funding and go with
go and
ground radar and investigate it and find this thing? And what a fabulous find it would be if we,
Indeed. But I mean, we have to be careful of this information, because remember, we did a show about some really good evidence. What we thought was good evidence turned out to be completely fake, about the ship that ended up in the middle of the Sahara Desert. And it wasn't just a little bit in, it was 1,500 miles in.
Yeah.
And we were completely like,
from the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, it was like, what? This ship was in the Bermuda Triangle, and it made it in the middle of the Sahara.
Pictures and everything.
It was photos. It was laying on its side. It was compelling, but only after the Iraqi embassy. I think you contacted them.
I remember I called them, the Libyan embassy.
Libyan embassy. And they said they had no recollection
The
of.
guy actually laughed and said, "No, my friend,
No, yes, indeed.
there's no. We're looking for a colonel in that report.
Yeah.
There had been a colonel of the Libyan army for public relations. You know, the right kind
They
of person
quoted
that
him
you'd
as well,
expect.
and they saw him. He was
They
somebody.
quoted him. They gave him his name,
Yeah.
his rank. So I was able to call up and say, "I'd like to speak to this colonel. How do I get in touch with him? He's in charge of." And the guy said, "Well, actually, the chap in charge of the public relations of the army is not that chap, and I've never heard of that chap."
Yeah.
What's this in relation to? And I was like, "Oh, this ship that appeared." I was like, "Huh?" Sorry, man.
Oh, they're hiding it, of course. But there you go.
Well, it would be a tourist attraction and a lot of money. So it would be a lot of money.
Yeah, so we're taking this with a pinch of salt as well. I know this.
We'll take everything with
Absolutely.
There's a thing about for researchers is don't discount anything but investigate it thoroughly. You know, something like that.
Yeah,
so we're not going to discount it. I mean, there's the caldera, the smudge in the caldera, the remains of sea creatures spread across the Sahara.
Yeah.
Then the so-called, I mean, that's too much of a coincidence. Just
that, the correlation here, it seems too there's too many things here which would lead to blimey, something really has happened here.
Yeah, I'm not much one for circumstantial evidence, but this is pretty strong.
All of it together adds
for someone rich, like, someone rich to actually spend money and look into this and
have a look and see what they could find.
What they can find.
Indeed.
But apart from that, I'm not really excited because Atlantis. So what? I mean, unless it was a truly advanced civilization, and there are technological secrets that we could learn that we've forgotten. That would make it worth. That's something to get excited about. But if it turns out to be people with a different kind of technology, people who had the technology to sculpt those statues.
That were found in Egypt and places.
Statues.
Like that.
Well, they're not. The figurines is a better word.
Okay.
Those figurines in Egypt that are just perfectly made figurines from ebony, which is a tremendously difficult stone to work with, a mineral to work with. How the heck? I don't think we can do it today.
No, I don't think we can. We've got the tools to do that without it cracking or damaging in some way. But they built intricate vases that some of them were so thin and supposedly done with hand tools.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah, it does. And we've got those artifacts now. So they must have been made, but how? But you're right.
If
it was this advanced civilization of the Atlanteans, perhaps, then that technology has been lost. Maybe, as you rightly say, if somebody had some money to spend and check that part off the west coast of Mauritania and see whether genuinely there are things to be found in the ocean, that could be worthwhile for sure. It would unlock the secrets of the past and could put the fact that Atlantis wasn't just a myth but a reality that we could further study.
I don't think Atlantis was a myth. I'm perfectly happy that that's Atlantis. I'm actually not that skeptical that that's Atlantis. I'm only skeptical about what it means. I think it was a civilization with alternate technology that fits in with the time period. I think they had technologies that have subsequently been lost, but that I don't think they had neutron bombs and aircraft and spaceships and satellites and things.
No, they didn't have that.
So that's what I'm trying to say. I mean, for their time, they were advanced for their time, but they didn't take the rest of the planet with them, for instance.
No.
If Atlantis was that advanced and had flying machines and so on and so forth, even though I've just finished remarking about the Sahara bird. Do you know the Sahara bird, by the way?
I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
Sahara bird is a figurine found in it may have been King Tutankhamun's tomb. It may have been. Well, anyway, somebody's tomb in Egypt. And although it's called a bird, it looks far more like an aircraft, frankly. it's really shifted everything. It's got the aerodynamics and everything of an aircraft with a tail and the tail
Like a fin of a plane, isn't it?
well, the fin of the plane, but more like the horizontal bits
Yeah.
on the tail, which is kind of weird. And I understand that if it is made properly, it actually flies if you throw it.
Flies, yeah.
It's like a glider or something. So that's kind of weird.
I know what you mean now. Yeah, I remember hearing it, but I didn't know exactly what it was. But now that you've described it, I do know what this is.
Yeah, yeah.
That is amazing. See that if that is from the
Maybe they
from
had
the
gliders. Maybe they
Atlanteans,
didn't have powered flight.
but they could
Because
fly off a hill or something and
yeah,
float
exactly.
and zoom around, perhaps in the
Exactly.
sky.
So maybe they had that. And then with this pole shift thing, you talking about civilization ending catastrophe, winds of up to 1,000 miles an hour. That is wind. I think is more powerful than that from an atomic blast, for instance.
Yeah.
So it will obliterate everything, except for a few people living in tops of mountains and things like that. Everyone's going to get wiped out. So if no, I was going to say not so, but if Atlantis really was that advanced, how come that technology didn't spread across the globe? So why aren't there echoes of it across the rest of the globe? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why I don't think it was that advanced. I think it was advanced for its time, but I don't believe it was advanced as compared to us.
When you say about the tsunami, could that not be associated like biblical times as the Great Flood?
No, it predates
flood,
it predates the Great Flood,
doesn't it? Yeah.
The Great Flood. We think it was about 4,500 years ago. I think most people who are not Christians think that was associated with a huge meteor or meteorite. I think it's a meteor when it's in space, and it's a meteorite when it enters the Earth's atmosphere. I think that's the distinction.
I think you're right.
So I think it's the one that came in down near Mexico and caused that huge round sort of indentation that you see off the coast of the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
There's this. If you look at it on a map, it's actually visible. You can look at it. It's something round and huge. came down there. Basically carved out the for people like me, not geologists, carved out the Grand Canyon and things like that. And if it spread like that, the only problem, I'm sure I can hear people shouting and screaming, "This guy's an idiot!" No, 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 I'm not an idiot. Because they're shouting and screaming. The wave should then have gone from that point and spread out.
Yeah.
It should be going west to east, which is the opposite of what we see coming across the across the Sahara.
Yeah, it is, because you're saying that it came from where?
America, basically. From America,
which doesn't make sense.
if that meteorite was the cause of the demise of Atlantis, then we should see the wave going the other way.
Yeah, and then Atlantis would have been swept inland.
Exactly.
Outside,
not from that. So people are going to don't shout and scream at me. I'm just reporting what other people are saying. Yeah. So who knows why I don't know. So
anyway, okay, we've talked this one quite a lot, actually. So sum up the discovery of the Eye of the Sahara. What's your view? Is it Atlantis?
Yes.
It is in your opinion, it is Atlantis.
I'm perfectly happy. There's been reports. It wasn't just Plato, by the way. Other people mentioned it. I think even as late as the 18th century, European visitors to Morocco, Morocco, were also mentioning this place and think there were legends about it. I went back and said an ancient civilization was there. And there's also gold, a lot of gold and things. And obviously that's where Mansa Musa was from that area, richest man in all of history.
Mansa Musa? I don't know Mansa Musa.
The king Mansa Musa. He was the richest man in all of history. He made today's billionaires look like paupers.
Really?
Yes, when he traveled on Hajj, which is pilgrimage, to Mecca. He could just, with the gifts and his lavishness, he crashed the price of gold over the rest of over Europe and the Middle East. The price of gold crashed for about 30 or 40 years after his visit. He had distributed so much of the stuff. Can you imagine getting gold and going, gold. Yeah, thanks for nothing.
Oh dear.
That's the Musa. Can look him up, guys. He's a very interesting character, the richest man in all of history.
All right. Anyway, let's move on here. Let's move on. So, conclusion is you think it's Atlantis. I'm still, jury's out for me. Not yet. I'm open to the suggestion, but I need to see a bit more personally. But certainly an interesting topic nonetheless. Okay, let's move on. Next one we want to talk about is there evidence to show that giants previously roamed the earth?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, why are you laughing at this one? This is one of mine. Why are you laughing?
Okay, you know what? I shouldn't laugh. I will just say that if anyone believes that, okay, I don't want to be rude, but frankly, man, you know, you and if people that believe that and the flat earthers, you must share the same bunk, man. Look, the giant thing is, in my opinion, the other reason we're talking about giants. I mean, okay, there are other reasons, but the main reason we're talking about giants is because of a quotation in the Bible. Now, I know that quotation because it buttresses my biblical skepticism. Others know the quotation because it mentions something glamorous, which is giants. And I think it goes something like this. I'm sure people are going to correct me. It goes something like this. The sons of God saw that the daughters of men were fair and took unto them wives who bore sons. And they, the sons, were the giants of old, the men of renown. I think it's something like that.
Okay.
Now, I'm interested in it because it says the sons of God. And in Nigeria, where you're constantly harassed by very earnest people who very earnest people who advocate their religion everywhere and go around preaching their religion. What are they called? Evangelists.
Oh, okay.
Where you're constantly harassed by earnest evangelists. Say this: God sent his only his son. So I'd be like, according to the Bible, wasn't his only son, pal. And that was my thing, just to get them off my back. But what other people are interested in is this Nephilim.
Oh yeah.
And in fact, there's a whole series of sort of like movies, science fiction or horror movies, something about these the Nephilim.
The Nephilim, which were big giant people.
Big,
but can I just stop you a minute?
Sure, please.
Just very quickly. See, you said you laughed about giants, okay?
Yes.
We haven't defined what a giant actually is. Remember, if you see someone in the street and they're over 6 foot tall, 6'6", say, you look at the language you would use. My God, they were like a giant. So you've got to understand what the term giant is. If we go by the stories we hear from Disney and movies and that, we have this idea now that a giant has got to be someone 100 foot tall or anything like that. Whereas in reality, a giant is somebody who's big and tall, but how tall? We haven't got a definition. Someone could be 6 to 7 to 8 feet tall. That's all.
Giants.
Sorry?
I am called a giant. I'm 6'4", and people describe me as being a giant.
Well, there you go. So when you say giants walk the earth and you poo-poo it, and you're saying we're a bit like flat earthers, giants did walk the earth purely because anyone that was above average, and if you remember, average size of humans back then was a lot lower than it is now. But you 4 to 5 feet. So if someone had an illness, now I know that there's issues about did people have gigantism, which has now only been defined here. We know by science and the medicine that some people have this. So if someone had gigantism, I can't even say that word. Gigantism, they would be above the normal, and they would appear as giants, and they could be, I don't know, feared They could be revered. We don't know. But this is
I'm
part
waiting for
of
you to
the
ask. You asked the
issue.
question, but you're answering it. So you asked the
Okay.
question, what's a giant? Look, a giant isn't a tall person, okay? I mean, there are tall races. The is it the Maasai? Who are these?
Yes, I know. They jump around a lot, but they're not that tall, are they?
The
They do. They jump around, don't they? Why are you laughing? Masai warriors, absolutely.
What a way of just
To make themselves tall, they jump, don't they? They jump.
Offhandedly dismissing an entire
No,
bunch of
I
people.
wasn't at all.
They just jump around, man. Huh?
I've met the Masai warriors firsthand,
I
and
don't think I'm talking about the Maasai warriors.
oh, okay. Who are
These
you
people
referring?
whose average height is like 6'6" or 6 something, you know?
Yeah, they are tall, but they're
Is
not
it them?
giants. No, but
Okay,
but
exactly.
they jump high
And
to make their appearance even bigger than they are. That's part of their.
Nordic Europeans, like, up in the Vikings in Norway.
No, they weren't big.
No,
They
I'm saying
weren't
no,
tall.
no, they were. I mean, the average height of those people is like 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", isn't it?
No. That's how
Okay, I'll come back to that.
Okay.
Anyway. And then here in the UK, you got a king. Remember Edward Longshanks?
Yes.
Yeah, he was probably only about 6 foot something or the other.
Hmm.
And yet it was called Longshanks.
Yeah, but he
Nobody
was
called him
like
the
defined
giant.
as no. He didn't call a giant, but he wasn't giant proportion.
Exactly. So you see, the thing about this is that those kind of sizes aren't giants. We call people like that tall. It's in our language. We say tall, right?
Yeah,
So
but
when you say giant, you're really talking about
when they wrote this down, how would you describe somebody if they were abnormally tall?
at least twice the average height. At least twice. You've got to dwarf everybody. You've got to be not just tall. Robert Wadlow is the
Yeah, it
tallest.
was 8 feet tall.
He was 8
Eight
feet tall,
feet
poor guy.
11, wasn't he,
Okay,
or something?
yeah, it was almost 9 foot tall, and but that was still not even twice the average height. Twice the height of the
Oh, he
average.
would still appear huge. His hands were enormous. His feet were
He
size
would appear
36.
huge. He would be, but I'm saying still, he wouldn't describe him as being. I mean, by my system, I mean more than twice the average height. He wouldn't have been a giant. And it's very, very important. These very extraordinary tall people who suffer from gigantism,
Yeah.
they are actually, their bones are still human bipedal, humanoid bones, right?
Yeah.
Our bone structure actually takes X amount of weight and height
Yeah.
without it becoming a problem. After which, it is a problem. The tallest bipedal that has ever lived was I need to look it up for you here. The tallest bipedal that ever lived, excellent, was a kind of a bird, believe it or not. And its bones were constructed differently from ours because of its weight and its height. So there is actually an argument that a certain height is the optimum for humans. Now, if you got a race of people who are consistently and constantly above the height and suffer no ill effects, you see, that's the kicker. That your race has got to be that tall and not suffer any ill effects from it. Then you've got a race of giants. So you got some objective standards that you can apply there. More than twice the average height.
Yeah.
So you're talking about, what was that, 5'6" times, what was that, times 2, 11 foot something, right? And none of the members of that race suffer ill health due to their height. They might suffer ill health, but not due to their height. And then that would be a genuine race of giants. Now, have you got anything like that?
Well, I sent you recently an image. I don't know if you saw it on WhatsApp.
I saw it and it made me laugh.
It made you laugh. This allegedly, for the benefit of our listeners, and I mean, we're not sharing this at the moment. If you did a search on the internet for Ecuadorian giant skeleton, you should see this huge, what looks like a giant skeletal being advertised in Ecuador Museum. And this thing allegedly is 25 feet tall.
Very impressive. And guess what I didn't find and why I laughed?
Go on.
What museum?
What museum?
What museum? Go and do a search. Look at all the files each image. Look at the file name. It comes from Pinterest. It comes from UFO thing and the other. It comes from all. It doesn't come from a museum. So
Right.
what museum?
Yeah, so it's all hogwash.
It's
as far as
hogwash.
you're concerned.
What museum? Wasn't it, any museum that had that would advertise it because everybody wanted to go and stare at the blooming thing. I'd want to go to
I'd want to stare at it. Yeah, indeed.
Ecuador.
I mean,
I
did think that was far fetched, but I thought I'd send it to you anyway, just as part of this show. But then giants again, like we've said, you're gonna have to help me again because I can't say this word. Gigantism. Gigantism. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's where I think the term is actually right, because someone who's 7 feet, for instance, they would have this condition, they would be deemed as a giant. And yes, they don't live very long because, as you rightly say, it causes pressure on the skeletal part of your system. It can only, your body can only deal with so much weight. And unfortunately, those that tend to be suffering from that condition have an early demise. Although there is somebody now who's the tallest, or almost the tallest man in the world now, in
the
Syria?
Chinese man, Wang.
No, is it Wan?
Wang. Is it the Chinese gentleman?
I don't know. There's another guy apparently, and I'm trying to find.
But it still has all this. It still has an abnormality of the pituitary.
Yes, he's got a problem with pituitary. The growth hormone hasn't stopped.
So that again is not a giant. That again is
a human who's got giant-like tendencies.
Abnormally tall giant.
We're not saying
tall human.
Okay, if you want to use it in the terms of mythology, and
medically stable, extremely medically stable, oversized, abnormally sized human. That is a giant.
That's right. That's right.
So
but we
don't
see
have any
it's
evidence
the definition of the word giant. The definition is not like a different creature, something that's mythical that existed in the past. Giants did roam the earth, but they roamed the earth amongst humans because they were humans. They were just big humans. So the term over the centuries has been lost in terms of what they were. It was just a reference to humans.
Well, the Nephilim obviously were not humans. The Nephilim were a hybrid of the sons of God.
Yeah, but that's again from
the Bible.
Theology and
right. So there is actually some weird evidence. By the way, do you mind if maybe I should leave it for the end of the video. Do you know I was trying to pronounce a word before? Okavango.
No.
Okavango is what I was talking about, the Okavango the Delta Valley in Southwest Africa.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's Okavango. It was driving me crazy. I didn't remember I was saying all sorts of things.
So you bled out of this topic back into the old one to clarify this.
Because I'm about to lose the page and find out for you. What was I going to find out for you? Just talking about it a second ago.
About the giants and Nephilim.
The
Nyapin. I can never say that as well. I'm terrible with my name. Nephilim.
Yes, about these people who had the egg-shaped
heads. Oh yes, heads. That we see Egyptian artifacts and actually hieroglyphics of those.
There you go. That's what I wanted to.
Okay, but they were still human.
Well, were they with that kind of weird-shaped head? Seriously, were they? Seriously, and they didn't look like they were suffering from gigantism.
No,
they looked quite normal. So there you are, and they were more than twice the height of the average person, at least in all the hieroglyphs that I've seen. So they actually do fit the definition, definition of true giants. And I didn't know about them until I was researching this topic. It's the first I've heard of them.
Also, there's the part of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Do you know about this?
I know about the Dead Sea Scrolls.
The Dead Sea Scrolls. There's a book.
The
Book of Giants within the Dead Sea Scrolls, and that also talks about giants. in, thousands of years ago that roamed the earth. But it does talk about a bit more about the demise of the Nephilim. The words we're using today I cannot say. Nephilim.
Oh, Nephilim.
Ah, struggling with these words, these ancient words. But yeah, so it goes on to describe them, and they were destroyed. But it doesn't say. No, actually, I think it does say how they were destroyed, but I don't have that piece of information. It just talks about the Book of Giants as part of the Dead Sea Scrolls that says the creatures inhabited the planet and how they were destroyed, but I don't have that information. But obviously it's also mentioned in the Bible about the Nephilim.
Yes. And it's interesting is where is who are, I mean, this is the ongoing discussion and debates, like who were the sons of God? Now, so the sons of God is like, what makes them sons of God? Well, it wasn't an honorific. It was supposedly, it wasn't honorific. It was supposedly a description for people who came down from the clouds.
Oh, aliens.
Yeah, well, basically aliens. And they took onto them the daughters of men. So there you have, so there's a lot of mythology around this about these people coming from the clouds and intermarrying with humans.
And that's how we were seeded, almost, where we're a hybrid of alien creature with humans, and that's how we have become what we've become. So there is a line of thought to indicate that we didn't just develop how we've developed naturally, which is how science would describe it, but we've come and been combined. We're a symbiote of another entity, which is the Nephilim, and we're crossbred, and that's how we are. We're a separate second species, and that's where we could be. But here we go.
Supposedly they found evidence of these people, supposedly, in where else? In northern Israel. And for those who are interested, the Jerusalem Post of February the 15th, 2022, so only just over a year ago. Again, the Jerusalem Post, January 15th, 2022, you can look it up. Says evidence of biblical giants found in northern Israel. So that's an interesting read for anyone.
What about that finger that was discovered about 50 years ago in Israel?
The finger, and with it the egg, not too far away from the egg-shaped head, which is, quite interesting when you think about the egg-shaped head with this elongated skull.
Yeah.
Right, and you think about it, and with the jaw, you could fit in our jaw. Yeah. Right, the jaw of an ordinary human could fit inside this thing's jaw, and was twice as big.
So your statement at the beginning, where you were saying, giants didn't live on the earth, you're now almost countering what you said. The whole point of this topic was to sort of look at the suggestions, little evidence that's out there, but this is a physical thing that they found. It's a finger. Again, for those who are watching or listening, obviously they're not going to see this. There's an image. If you do a search, the giant finger. If you do a search for the giant finger, you'll find this finger that's been unearthed. It is huge, and it belonged to some creature which we don't know. This finger was found in Egypt about 50 years ago, believed to be authentic. The finger itself is 28 centimeters in length. 28. So if you imagine a standard ruler, which is a 1 foot ruler, you have 30 centimeters on a ruler. I've got one here. This is just short of a ruler's length, this finger, end to end. Now that is enormous for an index finger, and the calculation that the scientists who've examined this finger believe that it belonged to some creature that must be close to 4 to 5 meters tall. So what's that, 12 feet, 15 feet? That's big. That's
45,
big.
yeah, 12 to 15, yeah,
Yeah,
12 to 15 feet.
tall. And this thing you can see.
Just a smidgen under, when I say smidgen, a couple of feet under the height of a giraffe. Now, have you ever seen a giraffe up close?
I
Those
have
guys,
actually. They're enormous.
yeah. So you think about something that's only a couple of feet shorter than that,
A giraffe. Mm.
shorter than a giraffe, and you are talking about something that's quite large. Now,
Enormous, and that's a giant.
the reason I laughed is that there are always, it's like UFOs, man. You know, there's evidence, and I can say that evidence for these giants is more solid than the evidence for UFOs. But the trouble is, it doesn't fit one final aspect of my definition of giants, which is a race of them. Where's the
Okay.
race? You've got individuals. Well, where's the race? What happened to the rest of them? Now, I told you already that I didn't set much store by the Nephilim story. I was speculating. So as I get excited about it, as I get excited about speculations about well, the Nephilim, always prepared to change my story if facts and evidence. If someone shows me facts and evidence, and I'll change my story easily. I'm not married to my story, but right now, it's a biblical. So for me, sorry, Christians, for me, it's a biblical mythology about the Nephilim. I don't really believe that the aliens came here and intermarried with humans.
You don't believe that? Sounds too
No.
far fetched.
No.
But do you get to the point of understanding that it could be a species that we've just uncovered, or that
I
did
don't.
live on the
You
Earth?
see, I'd like someone someone trustworthy to actually have a look at this finger and this
What do you mean by
spot.
trustworthy?
Well, I mean, I don't want people who believe in
Scientist.
evolution having gotten a hold of it. Okay, I want people who go by facts and evidence and don't have a predetermined theory that they're trying to support. I want real scientists, not the fake scientists that we seem to have. We are flooded by fake scientists, just buffoons, all evolutionary pounding buffoons. Because they say one thing and they do another. That's not scientific theory, my friend. That's not scientific method. Okay, facts and evidence, not speculation and idle theorizing. So someone that's trustworthy gets at it, looks at the DNA, and tells us what is this thing we're looking at.
Okay.
That's what I'm asking for. But I mean, I don't think giganticism. Now it's spread to me. I don't think giganticism.
Yeah, you can't
Giganticism.
say it now.
Giganticism. I don't think giganticism can lead to a 28 centimeter long
Finger.
thing.
No. Well, no, it can be big, but that's just too big, isn't it?
That's
That's just
ridiculous.
too big.
That's
Yeah.
too big. So
I
what
mean,
is it then?
well, indeed.
Could it be
Those
a
are the
giant ape?
questions. What, King Kong now? It could
Well,
be.
yeah.
Why
Well,
not?
why
Yeah.
not? I mean,
Why
look,
not?
there was a time in Earth's history when everything was much larger. Again, people are saying, the speculation is before this meteorite hit in the Mexico, because that apparently that is the change between gigantic creatures and the loss of plenty of free energy in the sense of a really warm planet. And then the planet cooled down again. Another reason why a lot of people don't believe in planet warming theory, because the climate with the Earth was far, far warmer than it is now. There was a lot of free energy. Reptiles could grow to any sort of
size, and they
size.
did. Huge.
They were huge because they never stopped growing, basically. And other creatures had to grow that large just to compete. But with that meteorite hitting, it made sense to lose size because it was much colder, and you don't need to be losing body heat recklessly when it's colder because energy is harder to come by. So we could have had a giant ape, and maybe this thing is a giant ape.
Okay. I'm mindful we are at the end of the show here, so we're going to need a quick sum up, really. So what do you think then? Did giants exist, the Nephilim and equivalent, or is it all hogwash?
Basically, I can't prove it, but my instinct is to say all hogwash.
Okay. My opinion also on this one, I don't know. There's not a lot of evidence, but some of the people who have talked about it seems to be quite, respectful in terms of what they're saying. So I will do a bit more digging, but my opinion is opened on that. Anyway, unfortunately, we have reached the end of the show for another week.